In a far-away land, there was a basic average boy named Peter. He lived on his family's farm and worked harder than you could possibly imagine. Most teenagers were either hanging out together or playing with their younger siblings. But not Peter. No, he liked doing farm work. Taking care of the animals, watering the flowers, and even plucking fruits. That was exactly how Peter wanted to live. His parents not only loved him, but were also proud of him wanting to continue his family's legacy. What they didn't know was that very soon something that could possibly change their lives forever would occur. One day, while he was watering the plants, trees, bushes, and flowers, Peter saw something shiny underneath the apple tree. What could that be? He thought. Carefully, he dug it out, brushed it clean, and in awe, he thought to himself, "Wow! An ancient golden medallion! I guess this belongs to the royal family." He put it in his pocket so he could deliver it to the king after finishing his work. Suddenly, he heard a soft and gentle female voice inside his head. "Peter, can you hear me?" Surprised, but also curious, Peter nodded, loud and clear. That's when he heard her say, "My name is Amity, and I am your guardian angel from another world. You were born with a very special gift, communicating with species no one else can either see or hear. Those who wear that medallion will be given that power temporarily. However, it cannot fall into the wrong hands, which is why you must keep it to yourself. It belongs to no one else but you." As he carefully listened to Amity's calm voice, Peter memorized all she said inside his brain, since he realized that something like this should never be put on paper. "Next to this," Amity continued, "the medallion allows you to open portals to many different worlds, including mine. All you need to do is wear it around your neck and think of all places you have been dreaming about each single night." Then it finally hit Peter. He has had many strange but beautiful dreams. Being a brave hero, protecting his people, saving his planet from extinction, it made perfect sense to him. Those weren't just regular thoughts or dreams, they were signs of what would happen in the future. Not giving this a second thought, Peter took the medallion out of his pocket, put it over his head and around his neck, cleared his mind, focused, and thought to himself, "Take me to Amity's world." At this, a giant blue cloud appeared in front of him. Carefully, he stepped through it. From a distance, his parents were shocked to see their very own son disappear into thin air. "Where did our baby boy go?" Mother cried. Father placed his arms around her, saying, "I don't know, darling, but I'm sure he'll be back home soon." The king, who happened to be Peter's uncle and had paid them a visit, witnessed the strange occurrence as well and said, "It appears to me, sister, that Peter embraced his destiny of making a difference in the world. However, like your husband said, he will return safely, without a doubt." That made Mother cheer up again, but just to be sure, she started praying, "God, if you can hear this, I ask you to bring our baby boy back home safely, please. Amen." Upon arriving in a heavenly place, Peter could not believe his eyes. "That's a lot of guardian angels," he thought. "Which one of them is mine?" Suddenly, she landed in front of him. Amity, the girl from his dreams, and also his personal guardian angel. Her long golden locks waved in the wind, while her wings clapped behind her back. "It has been quite some time ago since I last saw you," she smiled after giving him a gentle hug. "Come on, I'll show you around." Peter nodded, held Amity's hand tight, and let her place her other arm around his waist before they flew up into the air. All the things he saw were beyond his imagination. "This is such a beautiful place," he said. "Good to know you like it," his guardian angel smiled. Suddenly, Peter noticed an ancient dark temple, up north from the angel's castle. Somehow, it gave him the goosebumps. "What is in there?" he asked. Amity simply said, "Sorry, but we don't speak of that. Also, it's strictly forbidden to open its doors. That's why you cannot go there. Do you understand? Peter realized she was serious about this and promised to stay away from the temple. No sooner had they flown further, or a strange, deep, and dark voice sounded inside of Peter's head.
Young mortal, the guardian angels cannot be trusted at all. They are well aware of the fact that your medallion is the key to my freedom. Please set me free and help me to reclaim my castle.
Somehow, Peter had this feeling that there might be more to the temple than meets the eye. However, because he was a man of his word, he simply ignored these words. Then he said, "You know, Amity, these last few days I've had these dreams about me fighting alongside of the guardian angels and creatures from the other worlds against this dark, fiery creature called Ignatius. Is it possible that this has something to do with that temple?" Amity was shocked to hear this and said, "That's what will happen if you would open its doors. Remember what I told you and what you promised me to do. Stay away from there." Peter nodded and let it go. The next few months, Peter paid a visit to each realm and befriended all of its inhabitants. He also helped them out with field work and even told them about life on Earth. Each creature was glad to have him as their friend, since they never have traveled to other planets. Some even hoped they could visit Peter's planet someday, but they got scared of the thought of Ignatius unleashing his wrath upon them if this happened. "You shouldn't think of that," Peter said. "That creature, whatever it might be, is wide asleep. As long as it stays like that, everything's gonna be all right." This satisfied all of them. Suddenly, when Peter leaned against a tree, something sharp cut his hand. "Ouch!" he screeched. "That hurt!" He looked up and noticed a tiny bat. Unlike other bats, his wings were made out of diamond. "You darn night animal!" Peter angrily thought, as he got out his handkerchief to wipe away his blood. However, some of it had dropped into the water that went straight to the ancient temple. As soon as it got there and touched the temple's walls, it began to light up and fire came out of its chimney. A loud, cruel and evil laugh could be heard, which meant only one thing: Ignatius had been awakened. When he got back on the heavenly planet, Peter was shocked upon witnessing the gigantic monstrosity that was believed to be in an eternal slumber. "How is that possible?" he thought. "I promised Amity to stay away from its temple, but—" That's when it finally hit Peter. His blood containing the gift, the bat scratching his hand, a couple of drops from his blood ending up in the water, all of it. "Oh, darn it!" he grunted. "I never should have dug up that stupid golden medallion or accepted his destiny. I should have stayed back home." However, Amity landed beside him and said, "Peter, please suppress those bad thoughts. They are the source of his powers. Positive thinking is what helps you the most." Realizing that Amity was right, Peter nodded, cleared his mind, focused and said, "To all of my allies out there, it's time to fight and vanquish the one that used to rest in the Forbidden Temple. Come and join me to prevent our planets from being destroyed." This caused all portals to be opened at the same time. The guardian angels, the royal army from Earth, the field workers from the other worlds, each reliable creature Peter had met, heard his call. They walked over to him, stood still in front of him, kneeled down and swore, "We came to serve thee, almighty prince. Please give us thou orders." Peter looked at Amity, who smilingly nodded and said, "You can do it. I believe in you." At this, he looked at the army and said, "As of right now, Ignatius, the monstrosity that had been locked up in the temple for 1 century in human years, seeks to destroy the pillars of every world so he can reshape them all to his desires. However, I have spent too many times in these alternative realms that I cannot afford to let that happen at all. Now, some of you might end up dead or wounded, but since we can only end this together, so it shall be. Do you understand?" Everyone agreed with Peter, as they followed him to the castle, determined to defeat Ignatius. Upon entering the throne room, they all noticed that Ignatius had already replaced all of the angels' decorations and furniture with his own desired ones.
"Well, Peter,"
the dark and fiery creature smiled,
You managed to open my prison after some delay.
For your intel, that wasn't even done on purpose, Peter angrily sneered. One of your diamond-feathered bats scratched my hand. Because of that, a few drops of my blood ended up in the water. And that's how the temple opened itself. Ignatius smiled.
Do you really think I care? I can easily destroy all of you, just like that.
Not on my turf you won't, Amity responded. Peter, go ahead. Peter nodded, and quickly he yelled, Everyone, attack! Immediately, the allied army rushed forward, strong-willed to defeat Ignatius. But the creature laughingly wiped them aside with one single touch, without severely wounding them.
You will all live to see this young mortal die by the hands of your real leader,
Ignatius laughed. Suddenly, Peter dove from behind the throne upon the creature, saying, You talk too much, monster! You won't take away my last chance to get home again! Then he grabbed Ignatius's glowing sword, which was the only weapon that could defeat him, and forced it straight into his back. The monstrosity growled out of anger and pain before he threw Peter off of his back. He slowly walked forward to Peter as he felt the blade's lethal venom flowing through his veins, and said,
You have found my only weakness, mortal. Now you will...
That was his last breath, before losing consciousness and falling down onto the floor, ultimately vanishing into thin air. Peter slowly rose up, witnessed everything turning back to normal, sighed out of relief, turned around to look at the allied army, and smilingly said, We did it! Ignatius is gone forever! Upon hearing that, everyone cheered out of happiness, ran over to Peter, lifted him up on their shoulders, and carried him outside, showing the actual evidence that they were free at last. Upon getting back in the real world, Peter ran into his mother's arms.
I'm so proud of you, honey,
she cried as she pressed him against her chest.
Thank the Lord you have returned safely.
I'm losing breath,
Peter gasped.
Mom, let go, please.
Luckily, his father managed to gently pull her off of him. He then gave him a gentle hug.
Very good job, my boy, he said. You have actually made a difference in the world. Maybe not as you intended to at first, but still, you did.
Oh well, Peter smilingly said. All planets are safe, and Ignatius is gone forever. The king then placed his hands on his nephew's shoulders, before saying,
Our kingdom shows you its gratitude for what you have done, son. As of today on, aside from being a farmer, you are now officially a royal knight.
Peter sighed. Thanks, uncle. That means a lot. They then went straight to the king's castle, celebrating Peter's victory with the people and creatures from the other worlds. Amity smilingly looked at him as she stood on one of the castle's pillars. She then closed her eyes and said, Dear God, it might be forbidden, but I simply can't go on without Peter in my life. That's why I hereby sacrifice my powers to become a mortal and stay with Peter for good. Thank you very much for everything. She then lost her wings and robe, suddenly wearing farmer clothes. She did, however, get her beauty, and now looked like a girl of Peter's age. As fast as she could, Amity ran down the stairs and straight into Peter's arms, kissing him on his lips like never before. Mother sighed. Our baby has found true love.
That's my boy,
Father said. Approving this relationship, the king thought,
A guardian angel becoming a mortal farmer for my nephew. How wonderful.
The feast went on until the middle of the night, and they all lived happily ever after.